So I talk to people, other investors looking for passive investments. They get their minds blown, I guess, because I'm happy to hear that I'm not the only one that felt the same way about those low cash flows out there. They're like, yeah, I agree. This 6% or so cash and cash isn't great. When I tell them, hey, we target properties with 12 to 15% average cash on cash. So it's quite a big difference when you're looking at actual cash flow that can, again, most people, their goal is to get out of their job or replace their spouse's income or something. The more cash flow, the better. It's going to help you get to that goal a lot faster.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Our guest today is Don Spafford. He's a partner, integrator, investor relations specialist at Beyonder Holdings, real estate investment group dedicated to the outdoor hospitality industry. Don brings hands-off investors into the high-return world of commercial real estate investing in vacation property, specializing in RV parks, campgrounds, and marinas. With a focus on cash flow, asset protection, and tax advantages, Don's expertise stems from his experience in various industries, particularly management. He's also a passionate real estate investor himself, owning and managing 3 fourplexes and actively involved in new triple net commercial property development. Get ready to gain valuable insights on real estate syndication. Also, as we dive into Don's expertise into RV parks. I bet many of you have bought an RV over the last year or two. There's is a space that is growing like mad. I think my family and I have done more camping in the last 2 years than we ever have as well. And so I just see that space growing. Our guest today is an expert in that asset class. I'm looking forward to learning more about that personally. And I know listeners are you're seeing right the growth of that space, and we're going to hear more about that and dive in. Don, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Whitney. My pleasure to be here. I'm happy to hear that you're a part of that trend of the growing number of campers out there.
Yeah, I don't have the typical type of camper. I've never talked about this on the show, and so the listeners won't know this, but I ride horses, and so I have a horse trailer that has a living quarters in the front. It's still glamping. I mean, it's a real, really nice living quarters. It's smaller than most large RVs, right? But we actually enjoy that. Enjoy the tight space. But we take that, so we camp with the horses sometimes and ride, but then we also just take it to RV parks and camp just like anybody else, as well. And we really enjoyed that. But yeah, I'm part of that as well, I guess you could say.
Very cool.
Well, welcome to the show. And Don, give us a little bit of your background. I know you have a background in finance and some things like that. And you had mentioned that you thought that underwriting was going to be your thing, but you decided, hey, that may not be the thing for you. But yeah. I want to jump in and learn more about you, your background, and then why RV parks, and dive into some of the things the listeners need to know about RV campgrounds, either before they buy one or maybe even before they invest passively as well. But first, who's Don?
Thanks for those who don't know me. Don Spafford. I currently live in Idaho Falls, Idaho. I grew up most of my life around Omaha, Nebraska. That's where I went to school at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, right next door to Warren Buffett. So I kind of grew up, since a young age, I guess I've always had an interest in finance and money and numbers. Math and science were always my favorite subjects. And I kind of, as I became a teenager, started working at 14 years old, and I worked at Dairy Queen. So like the owners that were there, I went through 3 different owners during that time, I guess. And, each of them kind of were like a mentor, I guess, early on. And they kind of taught me about business and just how money works, I guess, And so at a young age, I took a liking to following the stock markets, So I started, back then it was, pre-internet days, I guess. And, I'd check the newspaper and read the stock prices.
I was going to say, how did you follow it back then?
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of my thing. And I, as I grew up, and then, one of our I guess neighbors later on was previously was a stockbroker. Now was like a sold pharmaceuticals, I guess. But so anyway, I kind of had this liking to investing and seeing how, you could make money grow and work. And so that's kind of the path I sought to pursue. I went into, finance. I got degrees in actually 4 majors: finance, banking, investment science, portfolio management, and accounting. All with that idea to become go into that financial management type of role. The thing is, though, I did take a couple years off. So I lived in Argentina for a couple of years, and then I came back, got married, and then went to school part time. Was I trying to raise a family? So by the time I finally got done with school, it was 2008, and of course, we all know what happened in 2008. There's all these financial firms were going out of business, laying people off, and so it was a horrible time to graduate with a degree in finance. And so I was kind of like, well, what do I do now? And so I was kind of, was happy to have a job. So I stayed there for well, longer than I had intended to, I guess. But as time went on, eventually our children, of course, grew up, and my wife was always a stay-at-home mom. But by our time, our youngest, at that time, our youngest was starting school. My wife was looking for something to do, and we wanted her job to be flexible, to be available when the kids are sick or during summer. So we end up having her go into real estate. She became a realtor in Omaha, and started working with investors. It was some of her very first clients, and that's kind of really what got me more motivated and curious to learn about investing in real estate and understanding how that worked. As time went on, of course, we didn't have at the time, we weren't, I guess, financially strong enough to be able to invest in real estate. I didn't have, a huge amount of savings or anything like that. But I was trying to learn. So I started reading some books. Eventually, we decided we needed to move to Idaho to help take care of my mother while we moved here. And then once we got here, I kind of got back into that and discovered, of course, Bigger Pockets, as many people are familiar with, as a major resource for many people to learn from. And that's kind of what got me motivated to make our first move. We bought our fourplex in 2017. I actually had to, I got creative with it. And I still didn't have a lot of money for down payment or anything. So I realized that, or I should say I discovered through listening to podcasts, is that I can borrow from my 401k. So I took a loan from my 401k for my down payment, and I found a local lender that has a 10% down payment option. So very little money really to buy this fourplex. And that's what kind of got me started and got the ball rolling to at least get into real estate and start investing and change my future. And of course, 5 years later, I was able to leave my job and be now full-time real estate. So it definitely was a life-changing moment, I think, even though it was a huge risk and it was scary at the time. But I was like, I gotta go for it. What do we got to lose? I guess.
Yeah.
So is that or nothing?
No doubt, it's a scary time to take that leap, right? But man, I think you have to think about your mindset a little bit and think that, okay, if I don't do it, it could be a lot scarier.
Exactly.
Maybe a lot of listeners, I'm sure we talk about it often on the show, but potentially in a job you're not thrilled with. Well, do you really want to be doing that 10 years from now, right? Or 20 years from now, and just wishing that you had not been too scared, right, to take that step. And right, so, exactly. Man, hats off to you and your wife, I'll say, because I know the dynamic, and the importance of that relationship and the partnership, right, and making that happen. So, but let's jump into RV Campgrounds a little bit, and why RV Campgrounds. For you, why I think you mentioned obviously it had some multifamily. Why the transition to RV parks, and let's jump into some of the things the listener needs to know, and myself. If I'm going to, let's say, buy an RV campground, and maybe why you preferred that over multifamily.
Going back, a few years, as I was saying, even when starting off that very first fourplex, for me the goal was always cash flow. It's got to have cash flow. I'm not looking for just appreciation. I was not in a strong enough financial position to worry about appreciation. It's like I just need cash flow. I need to replace my income, help build up more income, get us out of the hole we're in, and all these things. So as I progressed and got into different things in the last probably 2 or 3 years, I guess, as I started looking more into the bigger multifamily, trying to get into as we'll say, I guess, medium-sized properties like 20 or 30 unit or something that could JV on initially, and then later look into other larger multifamily for syndications and things. What I was getting turned off by was the returns, which for me were not great enough for the cash flow perspective. Everything that I would analyze on my own is again the smaller properties for like a JV, or even the bigger ones that I could take to another syndicator. For me, just the cash flows weren't great, and that's kind of what turned me off. I was like, well, if I'm not satisfied with the cash flow, I'm not going to ask somebody else to invest in this or put their money at risk. Sure, there's potential for great appreciation, but there's also potential that maybe not. That's not a guarantee. So I was more of like, it's got a cash flow and it's got to be, a double digit number I'm looking for. I'm not looking for 4, 5, 6%. It's got to be, 10% above at least. As I was searching and not finding anything on my own that made me get excited, I started looking into other syndications. I started, networking with more people and getting to know other deal sponsors and seeing their offerings, expecting to see something better. I was like, well, maybe they have access to better deals, or, they have better systems process to find those. And I was surprised to see that even then, the returns they were offering weren't great cash flows. They were all still mostly banking on the appreciation, get your equity multiple, but the cash flows were still relatively small. And so I was like, that's not going to be enough of a life-changing thing for me to risk putting my money into something else that I have zero control over, to just for a minimal cash flow. I was like, that's not worth it. I'll still go back and buy more fourplexes if I have to. That gives me better returns. So As I was still trying to find something better and researching, waiting, I almost got to that breaking point where I was like, well, maybe there's nothing else better out there. At least got to put my money to work and do something with it. And going back, I guess this whole time when I was working, I started working from home around 2014, I think. And so while I was working from home, after I discovered, of course, Bigger Pockets things, I started listening to those podcasts, every day. And that was probably like late 2016 or 2017. So I started listening to the podcast every day while I was working. And so while I was listening to this podcast one day, again, randomly, I guess somebody else was there talking about campgrounds. As I was like, oh, that sounds interesting and different. Now she was talking about the multiple income streams they have. And so I was like, there could be something to this, because I thought about, where I live specifically, my neighbors are, I guess, fairly higher income earners for the most part. We've got several attorneys in my neighborhood and some physical therapists and all that. And so I thought, over time, I've already talked to them about investing in real estate, see if they'd be interested in being a passive investor in some multifamily deals. But none of them were interested. It wasn't anything that they understood. They were scared of it. They were fine with their IRAs, and that's about it. But when I heard about these campgrounds, I realized that most of my neighbors, like you, have RVs or campers, or they go camping. And so I was like, hey, maybe there's an opportunity here. So I started talking to them, about it. I was like, hey, would you be interested in investing in a campground? Would you want to be a part owner in the campground? They're like, yeah, that sounds incredible. That's something that we would enjoy. This, think about this now. Something they understand, they like it, they use it, and so I was like, okay, there's some potential here for something different. And so I started networking with people in that space, listening to webinars, and just learning more about it. Initially, my plan was just to get my foot in the door, be the boots on the ground for somebody that may want to buy in this area. I live near Yellowstone Park. We're 90 minutes from Yellowstone, so it's a very high camping area. Most likely, somebody would want to buy something out here. So I was like, yeah, I could be your local person. Help take pictures and video, be asset management, whatever. And so I started just contacting people that are in campgrounds and trying to find somebody that was want to buy here or do something that I could somehow get involved in some way or another. What attracted me, though, is what I heard on this podcast again was the cash flows were much higher than anything else I had heard of as a passive investor. So we're looking at double-digit cash flows. So as I was now networking and talking to people in this space, I came across someone who was now one of my partners. That he and his co-founder partner had just bought their first property and were at that point where they now needed to grow. They needed to bring on more team members, and because they realized that they couldn't do it alone. And so the timing worked out perfectly as we talked and discussed what their vision was, where they're going with this company, and how I could come in and help. It just kind of everything clicked, and they invited me to join with them, and I said, yeah. Again, kind of going back to that first property I bought. It's like, if I don't, what else? What's going to change? I mean, I'll still stay in that same path, looking for some multifamily deals that aren't going to be making me happy, and maybe not invest in anything. But as I got to at least give this a try and go for it. If it works out, excellent. If it doesn't, at least I won't regret not trying, right? So I said, yeah, let's do it. And I joined up with them back in November of 2022, I guess. 2021. And so about a year and a half later, now here I am. We have been on a tear all of last year. Closed on 4 properties last year, which is below our goal, but we're doing some big things, and some big things are coming for sure this year. So and it's been great. I get to tell people now as I talk to people, other investors looking for passive investments, they get their minds blown, I guess, because I'm happy to hear that I'm not the only one that felt the same way about those low cash flows out there. They're like, yeah, I agree. This 6% or so cash to cash isn't great. When I tell them, hey, we can get we target properties with 12 to 15% average cash on cash. So it's quite a big difference when you're looking at actual cash flow that can, again, most people, their goal is to get out of their job or replace their spouse's income or something. The more cash flow, the better. It's going to help you get to that goal a lot faster.
Speak to some unique challenges or considerations sponsors, or yourself would, or should be aware of, when buying an RV park or acquiring them, and how to minimize those.
I guess one of the biggest things, especially if you're coming from a multifamily space, right? And I've already seen a couple of properties that have been for sale because they were bought by someone that did not know this. So you can't just hire a property manager and not worry about it. These properties are very much labor intensive. You have to have a full staff, competent manager on site that can handle all the different nuances. It's not, again, you're not just taking in rent from tenants to make sure they pay on time, handling a few clogged toilets here and there. you've got a lot of moving in and out people that are these are not long-term stay campgrounds. We purchase RV resorts. These are vacation campgrounds. People come and go. So you got all the people coming in and out all the time, and you've got to manage all the staff that's there. Make sure the guests are happy, leave great reviews. There's a lot to it. So you can't just simply put in a property manager and assume it's going to be all okay. And so I said I've seen a couple properties for sale lately that was the case. They were bought by somebody that came from multifamily, didn't understand how to run it and operate it, and now are selling it because they've made it lose money. So it's a process for sure. You got to have those systems and processes in place to know how to manage it, and not just hire some random person. You want people that are competent, know what they're doing, and that's probably the hardest part is having the good staff that stay. You're of course going to have turnover. People are going to come and go just like any job, but if you get the right people and they do their job well, that's what makes a huge difference, because you want those guests that come there to have a great experience and love being there, leave great reviews and keep coming back. And if you don't have that, you're going to quickly go out of business.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a place we like going to. It's on the beach though, and they have a pool, and so we can go. The kids we can go to the beach or the pool as we're camping. And then there's other places that are more secluded, that we enjoy going to as well. So, what are some ways maybe to? I was just trying to think, as an operator, I would want to know this, but as a passive investor, I'd want to know this as well. Like how sponsor, or operator has, maybe optimized just a different revenue streams for RV parks, right? Just to maximize that cash flow, right? But that, maybe we wouldn't normally think of, right? Especially being multifamily operator, I'm sure there's other revenue streams from RV parks that I wouldn't know to think of.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the great thing about these campgrounds is, there's almost, I'd say, unlimited potential as far as what you can do. It's not as simple as say multifamily. You've got your standard rent. You might have some laundry and maybe some pet fees, and that's more or less about it. You can't really do too much more. Well, so for us, we have, of course, our standard rentals, right? Your nightly, weekly, and maybe your seasonal renters, that campers that will stay there and pay that time they're being there. But there's also you're going to have typically a camp store. It's going to sell snacks and goodies and things that people need. So you got your store sales revenues. You potentially could have some other types of rentals like the golf cart rentals that people tend to love having the golf carts to get around the property rather than walking everywhere. So that's been a huge driver. You've got you potentially, if you're on a lake or river or something where you can have water features. You got your like boat rentals, but also you could put like a aqua park in there, so people pay to use the aqua park. Of course, if you're going there with kids, you're not going to deny your kids and say, sorry, you can't go jump on the water park thing. So you got to pay for that. Some of the more funny things, I guess, is that, for example, we have properties that have these like little pizza machine things, so people kind of just more or less make their own pizza on this machine. And those actually bring in a surprisingly large amount of revenue, because, you're at a campground. You don't want to just be making campfires all the time and cooking, your standard beans and rice or whatever. So people are willing to pay to have, nicer food. And so that's one thing right there. They can just, throw in these little pizza machines and those kick out, potentially up to like 50,000 extra in revenue per year. Then you've got, in some cases, some of our properties, for example, we have restaurants on site. We don't run the restaurants ourselves, but we rent out the building to a local restaurant that comes in and operates it. So that's additional rental income from the building. We do have some that have like smaller bar and grill type of thing, which we do run those because there's simple stuff like chicken strips and whatever. It's nothing fancy, but those still bring in great income. In some cases, there's things that aren't maybe direct revenue drivers, but will bring people there to add on that income anyway. So in many cases, we have we put on some of our properties to have concert events that go on. So people come out there for a concert. They may not be there for camping, but they'll come for the concert, and then while they're there, say, hey, while we're here, let's let's go again play to play on the aqua park or stay to one of the cabins or something on site while they're there and use some of the other features. So there's just it's what I think is incredible about it. It's just this unlimited potential of what you can do, and whatever you can think of, you can probably find a way to make it work. Even if it's just got a small pond on site, you can get some those like little paddle boards and put them on there, and people rent those, and they pay for themselves within a couple months, and then that's just additional revenue coming in. So yeah, it's just whatever you can think of that will work for the area, give it a try and go for it.
Speak to the location, the importance of location a little bit. We hear that all the time, right? In real estate and location. How does that apply to RV parks? I think about, well, oftentimes, obviously like the place I was talking about at the beach. Well, there's like 600 spots there. It's a big place, right? And you're right next to other people. And believe it or not, I've been very impressed that it's been really quiet every time we've been there. I wasn't sure what to expect, the first time, how loud everybody would be, but it's been really quiet and it's been really good experience. But there's times where I may want to, or I would prefer to camp in a place that's much more secluded. And I don't care if it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, right? That may not be the place that people want to rent an apartment, but it may be the place I want to go camp. So I don't know. I just wanted your thoughts on the location.
Yeah, well, for us, what we target, I mean, of course, if you got your natural attractions like your national parks and things where people are going to come anyway, right? So canceled around that just automatically means you're going to have people that stay there. But what we tend to target, what we look for is something within at least about a 2 or 3 hour drive of a major city. So people like yourself, right? You've got these, even like yourself or others have like the large RVs or large motorhomes, right? They of course get horrible gas mileage, but so when gas prices are high, people don't want to drive cross country usually, unless they're full-time RVers and they'll kind of take their time doing it. But typically most people like yourself that they have a job, they're at work and they're doing things, they still want to go out and use them and have fun. So having a property within about a 2 hour drive for most people is reasonable. Most people are willing to go out and go camping as often and come back home as if they can get there and back on a full tank of gas or so. So just having that closeness for us is the key thing, because we get that built-in customer base of people that live nearby that are going to come out there and keep it filled and packed, pretty much every weekend or every holiday and all that kind of stuff. So that for us is the number one thing is locations with that more or less short distance drive to get there.
Yeah. Okay. What about your developing an RV park versus buying a pre-existing? What would be your preference and why?
Yeah, so as of right now, we have not done any new development of campgrounds. It is in our plans, though. Probably within the next, maybe year or so, we'll probably start doing some. We have already looked at a few different locations where we could do that. The big difference, obviously, of course, is the upfront. You've got an existing property, is there. It already has a guest base that is using it regularly. So if you build something new, it's going to be the biggest thing is, of course, the no revenue upfront initially, but the biggest thing is going to be that marketing factor, because now it's a new property, people aren't aware of it, they don't know it's there, unless it's like right on the highway where people pass by all the time. You've got to do extensive marketing just to let people know that it's there, so they'll come there. And of course, want to come and say and leave reviews, and it'll take time to build it up. Obviously, yeah, eventually as long as you run it well, again, it's got all the amenities people need. Then sure, people will come and it'll get filled up soon enough. But initially it'd be a slow start. So for us right now, for our investors, we're looking for the immediate cash flow now. When we get to that point of doing development, that'll be a whole different type of investor base that will probably create a fund just for that. Those that are willing to wait for returns. But that's probably the biggest factor right now. Other than that, there's not too much. Most municipalities, counties, and whatnot are happy to allow new campgrounds to come in, or the ones we buy, we expand them and add them, make them bigger and all that. So these are not like again, they're not mobile home parks. So these are tourist attractions. It's going to bring revenue to the county or city. So they typically have no issues with building new ones or expanding the ones that are there.
Yeah, that's a good thought, or to think about. Is there a size of park that you prefer? Like, because again, I keep using that example at the beach. I mean, 600 spots. I know that. Going there, we're going there to see the beach and kids play in the pool and right. Stuff like that. But if I'm going to just be secluded somewhere, I may not want it to be as big of a park. I don't know. Just thinking about that. What are your thoughts about buying a 12 slot park versus a 200?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously for somebody that wants to, I guess, be more hands-on, a smaller park could work. I mean, that's most of your mom and pops are they wanted that lifestyle. They live there on site to have that kind of more relaxed lifestyle while they run a business. For us, for the investment perspective, for our passive investors, we need to have at least 100 existing campsites, because that, again, when we're replacing a mom and pop operator that tend to do the job of 5 or 6 people themselves, we got to replace them with new staff. We got to hire and pay those payrolls, and of course, to be able to give the returns our investors looking for, that capacity has to be at least around 100 existing sites. and preferably with room to expand. We would like to make them bigger, not necessarily all of them be 600 or above, but if we get a 100 like existing 100 campsite, we can maybe add another 30 or 50 or something. Then sure, that'd work great. But yeah, kind of that around that 100 existing sites. That's not just RVs. That could be maybe 80 RVs and 15 cabins or whatever. But around 100 existing rentable spaces is what we look for to start with.
You mentioned extensive marketing. What does that look like to be able to market an RV park well? And I mean, it being extensive. Yeah, I mean, especially if it's secluded, how do you let people know, right? That it's there. And how big of a radius are you targeting, or best ways to target, or I don't know, walk us through a little bit of that.
Well, so there are several known campsites for people that go camping. They're familiar with some of the major ones, like Good Sam, some other platforms where people can maybe pay like a membership fee that gets them some discounts to different campgrounds around the country. So that's kind of there's sort of that built-in base for people that know where to look anyway. If you're a camper, you probably know. But we do some I guess outreach to local communities. We contact like the chambers of commerce in different cities to kind of be on their list and be aware and participate in activities. We recently, in one of our areas, participated in like a school event. We were there, handing out backpacks and things for kids. And we actually just recently announced this last week. Actually, we now have a mascot that's going to be at all of our properties. So our mascot, which is Boomer, the Beyonder raccoon. He'll be at all these different events as well to kind of help attract kids and their parents to kind of see what's going on and want to come out and see Boomer. And so we're just participating in the local communities that are nearby, within probably 50 miles or so is reasonable to be out there to attract those local communities. But other than that, just that general marketing on these major websites and platforms, or people that are knowing where to look. And of course, part of our process, we have a lot of automations. When people check out, they automatically get sent something for that they can leave a review. So we have been having a bunch of 5-star reviews. Obviously, helps boost you up on those platforms to be listed at the top.
Nice. Don, we're going to have to end this segment, and I want the listeners to know we're going to come back in tomorrow's episode and continue this conversation. There's a number of things I want to ask Don, as we get into some due diligence items, evaluate an RV park, maybe some assumptions that, when talking about does an RV park work financially and the returns, some of those that I'm not as familiar with. But I'm interested in investing, at least passively in RV parks. Maybe I'll own one day. I don't know. I don't know that yet, but I want to dive into that on tomorrow's episode. But before we go, Don, tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
For sure, yeah. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so if you're on LinkedIn, you can find me there. Just look for my name. You can visit our website, beyondercamp.com. Go to the Holdings tab, then the About Us tab there, and then you can find my information right there. You can actually schedule a call just to talk to me directly if you'd like.
Thank you for being with us again today. I hope that you have learned a lot from the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're telling your friends about the Real Estate Syndication Show and how they can also build wealth in real estate. You can also go to lifebridgecapital.com and start investing today.